Good morning, Vinnie Mirchandani here. Real pleasure to have Doug Belden, who's the tax collector of Hillsborough County. I live in the city of Tampa, which is part of Hillsborough County, and that's not the reason I have Doug. I have Doug because I've written case studies about Doug's department. It's a Malcolm Baldridge type performer, very tight ship. And I thought it'd be good to get his, and by the way, he's been an amazing public servant, about to retire shortly. But it'd be good to get his perspective on, the intensity that the county has seen as we've gone through the last 3 or 4 months of stay at home and then now reopening and so on. And also how well our county appears to have done, given that we have a very elderly demographic. So Doug, thank you for joining me. Tell us a little bit about your career, and then we can jump into some of the questions.
Okay. I have studied medicine all my life, and I did some research so I can talk to lingo with many different doctors, virologists, epidemiologists, and infectious disease. I make, as you know, from winning the Governor Sterling Award, I am very into both long and short-term strategic planning. I have backup plans. I have process improvement. I do not listen to people on television. I deal directly with people that do this for a living. The person I deal with now is a guy named Ryan Pedigo, P-E-D-I-G-O, and he is the director of preparedness and responsiveness as to what's going on in Hillsborough County.
Okay.
We have 3 cities. We have the city of Temple Terrace, city of Plant City, and city of Tampa. I am very independent as to what I do. And again, I base my decisions on scientific facts driven by real data. And I'm collecting that data from Ryan Pedigo in terms of modeling, how far out they model, where they anticipate spikes. And you would think that the spikes occur in high density areas. That is not the case. They've been now testing in rural areas, and they're finding infected people in rural areas. So what I did is, it's a fine line between protecting the health and well-being of my employees in the service to the citizens of Hillsborough County. So we slowly phase. We have 8 offices. I asked Ryan, if I get a clearance from him, we'd like to open up the first one on May the 4th. And then I wanted to maximize the mitigation factors. I installed plexiglass in front of every single customer service rep. They all wear masks. We purchased a product called Impale that the molecular structure of this virus, the molecules, once it's sprayed on for 30 days, acts as a barrier for those microbes to get on a surface. In addition to that, we fumigate or we disinfect at night, during the morning, washing doorknobs. Each customer rep has a sanitizer, and they use that before every transaction and after every transaction. Ryan was explaining to me that gloves can be a fallacy for this reason. When one of my customer service grabs paper, whether it be a title or registration, it rubs off on the glove. People many times are used to rubbing their face. So the glove goes on their face, and then when they adjust the mask, it becomes infected with a virus. So that is not a good thing to use. So we're not using gloves, with the exception of my couriers who are taking around supplies and all, and they change those gloves every 4 hours. We had a situation in Process and Operations Center, which does all of our mail, all of our call centers in their warehouse. We had a young lady that was taking care of her mother. She came back and started hugging people. She tested positive, so I had to quarantine the entire operation out there. And that gave me a huge lag time for mailing out decals, registrations, and we issue on the average 60,000 a month. But again, I developed a strategic plan, also a backup plan, because Ryan does not have the data yet to support a second wave. However, I need to prepare for that.
Right.
At this time, we have opened up all of our offices, on appointment only. The chairs are 15 feet apart, both in depth and width. We also have thermal temperature guards where we don't invade people's space for temperature. They walk by, it could be 5 feet, and registers their temperature based on CDC guidelines. And again, Ryan, Anything over 100.4, they are not permitted to enter our office. We do the same thing for employees coming in the back door. Their temperature is taken, and they have a little tag, and the color differs from day to day. That I know that day they've been tested. We have social distancing outside for lines with little round circles for 6 feet. We have deputy sheriffs that enforce those rules. Inside, we're the first tax collector to use kiosks where you can walk up, use a credit card, and it'll come out in about 2 minutes, a registration with your decal, and you walk out. We have also, I'm a big believer in doing joint ventures with the private sector. We also have those kiosks in 3 public supermarkets, and it keeps spiking up. People shop. It's a convenient type thing to do. That's working out well. And again, I don't copy anybody. I'm very independent, and I know enough about medicine. I know who to talk to, infectious disease doctors I know well, and I get input from all of them. And that is what I need to maximize my mitigation, because I would be devastated if I lost an employee due to this virus.
Sure.
It's highly transmittable. It's a dead virus, of course, but the replication occurs when it tries to invade the immune system of the body, and it can replicate. We really don't know. I think we still have lack of testing. I think we're at 3%, and I don't know where that stands in the country. Ryan was telling me the problem is you test, there may be a lag period of those results, 3 to 7 days. Now, they try to anticipate through modeling what's going to have 7 days, once they get the test result, what's going to happen by modeling 7 days from the time that they look. Now, that can vary. My other concern is that when you have younger people, there could be as high as a 40% chance that they're infected asymptomatic. So we also ask that only the person that's conducting the transaction be in our office, not their family members. We have a system set up where we can text them and say your appointment's ready. They have the option to stay in their air-conditioned car until such time their family member completes the transaction. Now, we have to make exceptions if someone's in there carrying a little baby. And then we have a separate section to take care of that. And there's been very few of those situations. I just opened up my road testing, which we have a backlog. However, I'm very proud of my staff. We have caught up with our mail in less than a week, which is phenomenal. Yes. Road testing for younger folks. I have decided I will not put a retiree, law enforcement retiree, whatever, in the car with someone 16, 17, 18 years old that, again, may have a very high percentage of being infected asymptomatic 3 inches apart from an older person. So what we developed is a remote system, and we got this in the Department of Highway Safety, and I refined it. And the way that works is we have a tent set up. They have someone in the car 21 years or over. They have to have a valid driver's license, and they cannot be a driving instructor. We use cellular communication either to their speakerphone or their Bluetooth in the car. There are 5 required maneuvers that they must achieve to pass. And also our testers, even though they don't get in the car, they are still going to wear a mask because they may roll down the window and ask a question, and that would not be 6 feet away. Then if they pass on the iPads we have, or the tablets we have, we transmit into our office that this individual has passed the test. Before they enter that office for driver's license, they also get a temperature check. And again, if they exceed 100.4, they will not be allowed entry. They go inside, and again, the plexiglass in place, the mask in place, and they pick up their driver's license. Also, our testers have a coach's whistle. So some of these young people have not practiced, maybe getting off the course. We blow the whistle, and they're to be told to come to complete stop. And in the past, we've had situations where people have crossed over. In fact, we had one situation where a young man actually crashed into a car during the road test. That tells me that those folks, or that young man did not practice with his parents or whoever before he came to take the test.
Yeah.
And basically, you know, I do things and I get them signed off by Ryan. Ryan, here is my protocol. Can I do it better? And also, we have a backup plan. If we do have a second wave, how are we going to shut down? You know, and we also have a workforce that's slowly coming back. I believe that telecommuting is going to be in the future. And of course, you have to have an internet connection. We've got about 17 working from home, answering emails, answering phone calls. We're getting ready to put a few more people into the call center to catch up with calls because so much is going on. We also are very into social media, which I know nothing about, but I've hired Miss Nancy Milan, my director of community relations. She does a fabulous job with younger millennials who are quite advanced when it comes to social media. It's very, very important to make sure the information gets out to our constituents as quickly as possible. And also she just redesigned it. We have a what do you call it? A chat box where if they want to ask questions, we just redesigned it. I want to put it in competition as a government website. And they can call, but they can do everything. They can renew a lot of things online. We encourage them to do that to save them a trip to our office. Now, we want to talk about economics. I happen to know a lot of small business owners that I've spoken to. And they said, Doug, at 25%, obviously, we cannot survive. What I found out is that at 25%, they're not getting people in there at 25%, much less 50 or 100%. By and large, most of them indicated to me, in order to make a profit, pay their overhead employees, they have got to flip all their tables twice a night. Twice a night. My concern there is I believe that there may be higher than a 50% chance of small businesses never coming back. And that's directly correlated to sales tax. Hillsborough County is funded by ad valorem, sales tax, tourist development tax, and gas tax. Well, no one's driving. My concern is this year ad valorem, we're okay, but my concern in coming November, people know is a matter of feeding your child, buying diapers, putting shelter over you. I may not get paid because they know they cannot lose their house. No one can foreclose the tax lien for 22 months, almost 2 years. I collect $2 billion a year that I redistribute to finance government. If all of a sudden I lose 25%, that would be devastating. I am very close to the county administrator, the sheriff, the finance director. We talk all the time. They are very concerned that 2021, the lag will be catastrophic. It'll involve furloughing employees, benefit reductions, and things like that. As far as my budget, I prioritize 1, 2, and 3. 1 being is absolutely necessary to function. Software, tax systems. Number 2, we base it on a return of 4 years or less on a CBA, whether they purchase that. That's going to have to be cut back. There will be no raises, which optically would not be good when you've got 40 million people unemployed, which I believe exceeds that of the Great Depression. There's also my concern, talking to doctors, that the isolation, particularly among younger people, is creating a high level of suicides, and they make this decision, not over time, 10, 15 minutes, because they cannot tolerate 3 weeks of isolation. You also have a spike in the use of antidepressants, domestic violence. I keep in touch with law enforcement, and I know these cases. And there's a fine line. Do you go into economic depression, or do you open up and take the risk, particularly if there's a second wave? I can't believe that they opened up these beaches. In fact, the governor of Florida did not listen to the Surgeon General, I think is very bright, that he said we need to wait during spring break. And sure enough, they opened the beaches up. Now, Florida has tested about 3.2% of 21 million people, which is our population, which is not that much. And then you have hot spots. We have a high concentration of the elderly, nursing homes, and that sort of thing. So I would anticipate the positive testing would jump in those areas. As far as what you asked about the recovery, I do not believe it'll be a U-shaped recovery. It may be a gradual recovery. I think it'll have record numbers of bankruptcies. And I don't think that combined bankruptcies, excessive unemployment, and all the economic metrics, I cannot see a quick recovery. And I'm not an economist. That is my opinion, talking to both the private and the public sector.
Well, Doug, you answered all my questions. That's great. Can I take you back to a couple of them?
Sure.
So, one of the things, obviously, I've been interviewing a lot of executives in the private sector, and they've been describing all the intensity of response on their part, right? Shutting down, work from home, acrobatics, and making ventilators or quadrupling manufacturing capacity and so on. Clearly, the county, not just you, counties, local governments all over the country must have gone through an amazingly intense time as they decided on stay-at-home protocols, lockdown protocols, and so on. Describe a little bit about that tension that you guys went through.
Okay. First of all, you can have committees. Down here, I don't agree that you have a state committee comprised of CEOs of huge corporations with one physician, who I know, the CEO of Tampa General Hospital down here. Because obviously, i.e. Disney, I believe was losing $50 million a month, wants to reopen as quickly as possible. Now, I'm not saying this, but you got to consider the fact, from a political standpoint, Florida is a swing state, which must be one, in my opinion, become president of the United States. Which concerns me is, in fact, politics overriding the healthy and safety and well-being of the constituents of the state. Every single state is different. Every single state is different in terms of the population of the elderly, the number of nursing homes that are the most susceptible, in my opinion, to this virus. I think that New York made an absolutely catastrophic mistake.
Correct.
Putting positive patients inside nursing homes, and you can see what happened, the results. I also do not believe the federal government should tell counties how and when to do things, because every county is different.
Right.
And I believe that the public officials should be making those decisions. Our mayor, Jane Castor, is a very good friend and a leader in the city of Tampa, had asked for a longer lockdown. But again, you have consequences of a lockdown. So again, what I do is I lay out a strategic plan. I have a backup plan. I get all my senior leadership. I get all their input, and we make a decision. But I will not make that decision without basically a sign-off from the health department. For example, the Pasco County tax collector will allow an adult in the car with a young person for a driving test. They roll down the windows. They put the air conditioner on, which is the worst thing you can do. It can be blowing airborne viruses. You don't do that. They must wear a mask. Well, what about if the student or they forget the mask? And there is, I believe, risk to that, and so does the health department. But again, they may not be coordinating with their health department to get their input. And again, I can speak medical lingo. I've studied and done research in medicine. I still do, to keep up with things. So when doctors, I can talk to them again in medical lingo. I understand that. I've done research.
Sure.
And I understand how important real data is. And I don't like people that guess. Ryan, again, as a first responder when something happens, he went over, for example, a fire rescue individual got infected. He was the first one there. What does he see? About 4 or 5 people in the crowd rubbing gloves on their face. And that's why it's a fallacy that you need gloves. That could worsen the condition, especially in the environment, the way I offer services.
Doug, though it seems like our county, given the elderly, we seem to have done reasonably well. Or is it too early to say we've done well?
I think it's too early. I think that, it kind of spiked the other day, went down. But again, what area are they testing? I think we're at 3.2%. We have a very large state. We have our county is 1.4 million people, 1,200 square miles, a lot to cover. And obviously their thinking is the higher the density or population in the area, the more cases you have. Well, that's not the case. When you go out to Plant City and rural areas, they're also seeing infections out there a lot more than they thought. So there's uncertainty here. There's total uncertainty here. So I've got to look at things day by day. I have my senior staff, branch managers report to me every single day. And I'm always looking for things without taking away people's First Amendment rights to mitigate, to save anybody, employees or my customers, from transmitting this virus. And again, it would be devastating for me to lose either an employee or a customer because I didn't do enough.
Doug, you've had just an amazing career, so I'm sure people listen to you. Are others listening to you, or is it because we are in such a, as you say, the economics are just so daunting that people are eager to just open up?
You know what, that concerns me because it's a very fine line from service versus an economic collapse. What concerns me is when I look at the numbers from the state, where they underestimated by almost $800 million loss of revenue. All right, so when you have tourist development sales tax that comprises 72% of your general revenue, if people don't go into restaurants, if people don't go into theme parks, that sales tax will significantly decrease. And there's not enough economic data for me to look at until after the first quarter to see the true picture. I did serve on the SBA, which is our pension plan appointed by the Attorney General a number of years ago, and became chairman. Florida is pretty well funded, at least at that time, about 88% for the pension plan. Now, the other problem you have is how do you make up those deficiency in the general revenue of the state of Florida? Well, one way is to raise taxes. That's not going to happen during election year. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
Another way to protect the pension is to have the employees make larger contributions than they used to. They're going to cut down locally, no raises, which is a lot of money. They're going to absorb the in-cost and health insurance costs. In fact, yesterday, I went over just from a standpoint of the employees, which constitute about 82% of our entire budget. And I use different scenarios. You know, if the state says, Mr. Belden or the county, you're going to reduce your budget by 5%, 10%, I took all the different scenarios of how that would affect our operation, the number of CSRs that we would lose, which is all tied to the time and efficiency that we deliver to the customer.
Sure.
But again, when you have restaurants, huge amounts of sales tax, I don't see that coming back. And I really believe that I would say as high as 50% of these small businesses will never come back. Yes, they got a stimulus check. It only lasts so long, but they don't have the money to bring back the employees. Even though I have underlying conditions, I'm 66, I have gone out with a mask, sat outside, and you only have 2 tables that are full of folks. And you can't exist on that. The other thing that's very interesting is we have telecommuters, the ones, again, that have internet connection. Their responsibility is to answer emails, phone calls, to assist the call center. I believe, I used to be a real estate developer when I was very young, 28. I would not want to be developing office space as we speak. I think that's going to be a thing of the future for a number of reasons. You are so close, tight. To have a functional office, I don't think you can maintain 6 feet. And then the other thing is, by telecommuting, the landlord, it reduces costs by renting less space. The employee can telecommute. If they have a child there, can't find child services, daycare centers, and that sort of thing. And they see that, they save gas, which obviously the gas tax will go down and stuff like that. So again, the funding is my concern with all those funding parts for our county as well as the state. So I'm very concerned about that, and I do not see, again, a U-curve recovery. And the longer this lag occurs, the worse the economy gets. The young people's, the suicide rate is accelerating. And I'm not talking again about, prolonged 6 months thinking about this. A quick reaction, saw the news last night, 14-year-old in a matter of 10 minutes decided to commit suicide. They could not tolerate the isolation. And I think that in some cases, 600 physicians wrote letters to the Trump administration saying basically that the isolation and lockdown could be worse than the virus. People not being able to get chemotherapy, people not being able to see a psychiatrist for medication, particularly when elective type things were not allowed. They didn't get the chemo, the cancer got worse because they couldn't continue, and all these kind of things. Yep. And the doctors are saying again, the more prolonged that this lockdown occurs, you're going to have major medical conditions that'll be very, very difficult to deal with.
Well, Doug, the private sector, many executives I've talked to, now these are bigger companies, are a little more optimistic than what you may be seeing with the smaller businesses. I'm a small business, so I understand what you're saying. But the bigger companies seem a little more optimistic. So keep your hopes up. I know it's daunting where you're sitting, looking at your tax shortfall and all that, but it's actually not as bleak as you may think. So any final thoughts on what you could share with others?
I'm an extremely optimistic person, but I'm also a realist.
Yep.
I am very much looking at numbers, economics, but my real background, quite frankly, I was going to be a pre-med major and a doctor. And when I was 16, I went to the hospital library and read. I was involved in doing surgery with doctors. I have read a lot, the New England Journal of Medicine. I still do that. And again, by doing all that over these years, I've understood how to talk to doctors. If I wasn't going to be a doctor, I've been a cardiologist. My good friend Eric Harrison has known me since I was 14 years old, and he has taught me everything I know about medicine, reading x-rays, doing echocardiograms. So again, when I talk to infectious disease doctor or virologist, in fact, I did research with a virologist at the University of South Florida on a grant, I can understand their medical lingo, and that's why I listen so carefully. And of course, being a real estate developer, I understand numbers, how things work. I have friends who are economists. And of course, everyone has different opinions.
Sure.
But one thing I do not listen to TV and take recommendations. I deal directly on data-driven science.
You do your in the analyst world, we call it primary research. You do a lot of primary research.
Tremendous amount.
You listen to first-person interviews. That's always the best source of information.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I'll call Ryan up. Ryan, this is my road testing protocol. Is there ways I can improve this? And what I call process improvement. Yep. To increase mitigation to protect the public and my employees. So they said, Doug, you got a good protocol. I'll proceed. Ryan, I want to open up this office located here. What's the spike numbers? What does your modeling show? I think, Doug, you're fine to open up May 4th at this location. I'll call him up at every single location. I gave him the protocol for road testing. He's kind of signed off on that. So I'm very much into science-based data, not guessing, not politics. Even though I'm a public official, I'm very fortunate to have the knowledge of dealing with those professions.
Doug, thank you so much for your service and for your authenticity. I mean, a lot of politicians will say what they need to say, right? You're always, when I wrote the case study about you, I was impressed with the detail, the technology, and all that you've applied. And so, thank you very much for your service. I understand you're going to be retiring next year.
Yes, sir.
Well, on behalf of all the citizens, thank you very much for your service. And stay safe, stay healthy, and keep being feisty. We need people to be feisty at this point and not just accept, whatever they're being told. It's a very
Thank you very much for interviewing me, and I wish you the very best, and you please be safe.
I will send you a recording as soon as it's available. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.